honor and privilege to be here, and thank you so much to Rebitz and Lisa for opening up your home. But not only you, but also Rabbi Mark, and Rabbi Louis, and Jody, and all the whole team at the suburb. This is incredible. I don't think you realise that this doesn't go on in other communities. But you should realise how privileged you are to have such amazing leaders at the helm, and also the lay leadership. And please God, the community will carry on under your leadership for many more years, going from strength to strength. Okay, I'd like to dedicate the learning today. Please carry on eating. I'd like to dedicate the learning today to the recovery of the soldiers that are injured, to the safe return of all the hostages, and the safe return of all the soldiers. I'm going to be talking about Parshas Korach, which is this week's Parsha. But I've titled the talk, Seeking Counsel, because I'm going to be talking about taking advice. I don't want to talk about disputes. I want to talk about taking advice, and I'm very happy to have audience participation. You know me, I like audience participation. Nothing you say is wrong. Whatever you say is right, because it's your opinion, and you're entitled to your opinion. I also would like to dedicate the learning today to my late mother-in-law. She passed away on Hanukkah 2 years ago, so it's about 2.5 years ago. Her name was Bruria Bas Shlomo, and she was always there for me. She gave me a lot of advice, and she was very approachable, and I had the great honour to be able to ask her different things.
Can I ask?
Yes?
Because Madeline has just lost one of her sisters.
No, I told
Yes, but why don't you say her name? We can do the learning in her
No,
name. No, she doesn't want to. Okay, so the Sedra opens up this week. I'm just going to give you a tiny overview of the Sedra. Korach, who's one of Moshe's cousins, comes along and says, why does Moshe have to be the leader? Why does Aaron have to be the high priest? And all Aaron's sons have got jobs. And me, why do I have to sort of get like shoved to the side? I'm only like a little Levi. And he has a whole argument with Moshe. Hashem says to Moshe, sort of like, back me up here, Hashem. And basically, earth opens up. Korach and his congregation die. Yippee, Moshe is proven to be the great leader. But I just want to talk about the very first verse of the Sedra. Source 1 on your sheet. Vayikach Korach ben Yitzhar ben Levi ben Dosan v'Aviram b'nei Eliyav v'On ben Peles b'nei Reuven. So there's a lot of things. What does Korach take? He took himself to the side. He sort of started a dispute, who he was, and he, together with two characters who are very difficult characters, we call them double trouble, talk for another time, Dosan and Aviram, the sons of Eliyav, and On ben Peles, they are all B'nai Reuven, they are the sons of Reuven. Okay? This is how the story opens up. Now, I'm not going to be a spoiler alert, I already told you what happens. The very interesting thing is, the name On ben Peles is only mentioned once in the whole Torah, and it's mentioned here. So if you imagine the Times newspaper, it's got a nice big heading, Korach starts his rebellion with Dosan and Aviram and On ben Peles. And then that's like the byline, and then underneath there's nothing about On ben Peles. It literally, he disappears out of the story. So there is an opinion which says he was Dosan and Aviram's brother, and his name is Nemuel, which we're not going to talk about that now. We're just going to talk about what happened to On ben Peles. That's what we're going to start off with today. Okay? Here we go. The Gemara fills in the blank, and Rashi brings the Gemara, because it's very strange that he sort of like is in a headline and then he's just not in the story. So what happens to him? So there is a midrash that we have now. Again, midrashim are stories, they're part of the Jewish heritage, but it doesn't mean that exactly what happened is true, but it's there to teach us something. And boy, is it going to teach us something very important. So source 2 on your sheet. His name is On ben Peles. Now the word On, Aleph Vov Nun is his name. Sounds a lot like an Onain, someone who is in mourning, someone who's lost a parent or a sibling. Before they bury the dead, they are in a state called Onen, which is where they can't do any mitzvahs, any positive mitzvahs, before they've buried their dead. So it's mourning. On, ben, comes from the word lahavin, to understand, like bina, understanding.
So you can't do any positive mitzvahs before you bury your dead?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
So for instance, somebody who's religious and obviously prays whenever they eat.
Yeah, they shouldn't pray before they eat. Yeah, it's very
So
hard for someone who does it. They can eat, they can't make blessings, they shouldn't pray.
Okay.
But thank God I'm not in a position where I know
I'm
enough
just
about it.
curious about
But
what
there is,
that one's not supposed to eat,
yeah?
because
I don't know, maybe somebody else is more familiar with the laws than I am, but that's my understanding is that they have basically the duty to bury the dead supersedes all the other things, and therefore they're left hanging, so to speak. Does somebody else know more about it than I do, Esther?
You're in limbo land.
Sorry?
You're in a limbo land at that point. So I remember when my parents died and my sister recently, that I asked the Shiloh, what do I do about eating them? Don't say any rockers.
I don't think you doven.
No, you don't love them, nothing. And it's a very strange...
It's a very strange
So
time.
somebody dies literally Erev Yom Kippur, for argument's sake, and then bury them straight after.
But then you cannot eat, because that's not eating.
I know, but
The question is you can't...
But all the prayers are Yom Kippur.
I don't know, but the thing is, Yom Kippur, that's a very strange question, because I think then Yom Tovim take away the Avelus, but I don't know how it happens. So, for example, my grandma died on Chol HaMoed Pesach, and then the last 2 days of, you don't bury the whole, you can bury on Chol HaMoed, then you can't sit shiva until after after Yom Tov.
First day, basically,
Please God, we should never need to learn the Hilchos of Avelus, and if we do, then we have to get somebody who's a bigger expert than myself. Okay, this is what the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, okay? On, he is someone who was sat in mourning, aninut, sheyashav ba'aninut, he sat in mourning over the sins he committed, that's in brackets, and he repented and he was spared. Pele, like in Israel, we call a mobile phone a Pele phone, because Pele means wonder. Okay, because it's a wonder phone, right? It's a miracle that you can take this phone, walk anywhere, and it's just, today, seriously, it's like having a massive computer. Right, that's why it's called Pelephone, it's a wonder. Okay, he sat in wonder, he had in wonders, because wonders were performed to him. Okay, Ben Reuven, the word Ra'u is to see, lirot, to see. Bain, lahavin, to understand. He's a son who saw and understood. Ra'ah vehevin, the nature of what was transpiring, and he repented. That's in brackets. Rav says, On ben Peles did not repent on his own. His wife saved him. She said to him, what's the difference to you? She says, if Moshe's the leader, you're the underling. If Korach's the leader, you're still the underling. Get out, jump off the train. Don't get involved in the dispute.
Clever wife.
This is a clever wife. And it carries on, but it's not on the sheet, okay? She says, why are you involving yourself in this? Owen said to her, what can I do? I signed up, we did that pinky brother swear, blood brother thing. I told them I'm going to join the team. And she says, leave it to me. Okay, she said, you sit here and I will save you. She gave him wine to drink, and she caused him to be drunk. She put him in a cupboard or shoved him in his bed, shut the door, and she sat at the entrance of her tent. Source 3, we're carrying on the story. She exposed her hair. Whatever that means, maybe people had their hair covered in some way, or they had their hair plaited in some way. I've read somewhere that she was like the way that people would undo their hair if they were going to bathe themselves. So anyone who came to see her stepped back. And this is source 3. It's just a continuation of source 2. It's just on the next page in the Gemara. And she saved her husband. We're going to carry on with that story in a minute. But the Gemara carries on like this. In the meantime, the assembly of Korach was swallowed into the ground, and On ben Peles was saved. Korach's wife, on the other hand, we're on source 3, said to Korach, see what Moshe's doing? He's made himself the king. He's appointed his brother the high priest, and he's appointed all his brother's sons deputy high priests, basically accusing him of nepotism. By the way, Korach's followers saw On ben Peles' wife sitting there with her hair down or whatever it is she was doing, looking like she's about to get into the shower. Imagine someone knocks on the door and you're like standing there in your nightdress, get the picture. And Korach's followers who said, come on, On, we're having a team meeting, they were like, oh, no. It's really interesting, which obviously means they had they had common decencies. They realised that was not appropriate. It's just really interesting. Korach's wife carried on, and she says, Moshe's making up all these rules. He says things like, if there's truma, the Kohen gets the truma first. That means his brother gets the truma first. The Levites only get the second part. The word Korach was probably not Korach's name as well. That's a separate issue. The word karachat is like a haircut, which is very short. So according to one of the Midrashim, Korach, his nickname, maybe that wasn't his real name, was Baldy. Because apparently, according to the Midrash, he had beautiful, beautiful curly hair, think about, Charles II's look. No, I'm serious. Think about that look. He comes home. All the Levites in the temple were told they had to, in the Mishkan, they had to shave their heads. Korach, imagine he's got this like beautiful hairstyle going, like beautiful coif thing, look. And he comes home and his wife's like, what's happened to you? And she's like, he's like, Moshe told me all the Leviim have to have their hair cut like this. And she's like, he's jealous of your hair. He's like, but what are you talking about? Everyone had their hair shorn. All the Levium, we're all working in the temple. We all got to have the same hairstyle. That's like in the army, they've got to have a hair. That's sort of like buzz cut. And she's like, he's making fun of you. He's jealous of your stunning hairstyle. So what he's done is he's made everyone else do it just to make sure you look stupid. And he's like, really? Oh, wow, gosh, okay. And then she started off with all sorts of things. From here we learn, the Gemara quotes this pasuk in Mishlei. Chachmos noshim bonsa beisa. The wise woman builds her house. Ve'iveles beyodeha tehersena. And the foolish one tears it down with her own hands. And the Midrash tells us, the Gemara, which I quoted to you, Sanhedrin 110a, refers to the Korach's wife tore his life down, and Ben Peles's wife built him up. She saved him and she built him up. Can you imagine how incredible this is? From just, he's mentioned in the story, and then he disappears out of sight. I just think it's incredible. Hiding in the story, it's like nothing's written there. There's a rabbinic tradition to what happened to this man. And that what happened to him was his wife saved him. And I think that's incredible, because in life, anybody can tear someone up or tear someone down or build someone up by what you say to them. You can egg someone on. So if, for example, Liliana, she says to me, I'm really upset. Esther made a party. She invited everybody in the whole neighbourhood and she's cut me out. Let's say you said that. I can't imagine you say that, but let's just say you did. And I can't imagine Esther would cut you out, but let's just say that happened. Hypothetical, okay. So I could say to her, Esther's a right so-and-so. She's always leaving people out. I think she doesn't like you, and make it much worse. Or I could say, Esther's moved. She's not in the house anymore. She's moved to a small flat. She told me she'd love to invite loads of people, but she could only really invite 3. There's different ways of speaking to people. And you can make something so bad. You can think of your own examples. I don't need to tell you examples of how you can make things much worse or much better in many aspects of your life. Okay? And also sometimes you know something. Don't always have to say what you know. Like, oh, I saw that person out last night. And you don't have to say that. Full well they said they couldn't come, whatever it was, you asked them to come something, and they were somewhere else, they went to the theatre. Okay, they could have booked tickets in advance, but you can say, yeah, I think she only booked them this morning. Make it worse for someone. Or, just nasty. And here we have a story of Korach's wife, and the Midrash even tells us that Korach was very, very wealthy. He found the keys to the keys to his storehouses had to be carried on like loads of donkeys. She had everything, Korach's wife. Her husband was a Levi. He was Moshe's cousin. It was very nice. He had a position. He was sort of like saying, well, it's not so fair. She made it worse for him in every possible way. Just going to finish off with what happened to Ben Peles, and this is carried on. The story gets carried on in the Midrash Hagadol, in Parshas Korach. Source 5 on your sheet. When the earth opened its mouth up and sought to swallow On, he was in his bed. His wife grasped at the bed. So according to the Midrash, it wasn't like an earthquake like we imagine an earthquake. It was like the earth almost opened its mouth like a zip. It zipped past people, collected that object, anything that belonged to any of the people who were involved in the dispute, and then zipped up the earth. There was no it was like almost like a miraculous opening and closing. And so when the earth opened up, it tried to sort of take On down under, okay? Not Australia, obviously. His wife held onto the bed and she said, Hashem, On has sworn that he will never be involved in a dispute. Your name exists forever. So if he violates your oath, because God is Hoyahoveh v'Yihiyeh, Hashem was and will be. So if there's a problem later on, you can punish him later on. And so his wife said, so you can punish him afterwards. She said to On, get up and go out And he said, I'm ashamed in front of Moshe. She said, I'll go with you. Well, let's sort it out. Go and apologize to Moshe. Immediately he went out and stood before Moshe with him, and then she stood with him, and then he ran away. She started shrieking and crying. Moshe said, what's going on with this woman over here? They told him the story, and they said, she is the wife of On, and explained the story. Moshe went to her house, which I think is the most incredible part of the story, is that Moshe was wronged by Korach and his congregation, and On had signed up, even though he walked away. Moshe went to her house and stood at the entrance. He called On ben Peles, and he said to him, Hashem will forgive you. So I think that's an incredible story. Comments?
Sorry, just want to check. Korach is a cousin of Moshe?
Korach is cousin of Moshe. Look, we think Korach was the son of Yitzhar. He was the son of Kahos, the son of Levi. Moshe was the son of Amram, who was the son of Levi, but it's complicated because Moshe is related to Korach twice because his mother was also from the house of Levi. She was Yocheved, in which case she was Levi's niece, as well as married his grandson.
So is it
Great-grandson.
possible that sometimes someone who is a Levi, there will be a lot of people in that family called Moshe?
I don't know. I'm not sure. It could be, but Moshe for sure was a Levi. Moshe was a Levi. He was a Levi. So was Aharon was also originally a Levi, right? And so, but then the Kohanim were all, so to speak, from the tribe of Levi as well.
The reason I'm asking that is my grandmother was a Levi, and we have a lot of Moshe from her side of the family.
Interesting. Well, Moshe was definitely, because Moshe's great-grandfather was Levi. It was Levi, then Amram, and then Kahos, and then Amram, and then Yitzhar. I can give you an exact family tree. If you remind me at the end of the class, I can direct you to something like that. Okay. Now, so what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that story took place as I'm saying it. I'm saying it's a midrash, and the midrash is there because the name of a central character is in the story, and then he drops out into oblivion. So the rabbis are saying, well, what happened to him? So that we have a rabbinic tradition as to what happened to him. And this is what the midrash does. It shows us every word is very nuanced and everything's important. And when someone's name is not mentioned, we have to notice. And then we have to understand what happened to him. And I think this is incredible to think how powerful, first of all, that a woman is, and second of all, how powerful you can be by giving advice.
Do we know her name?
Mrs. Owen Ben Pellis.
No,
I don't know her
She
name.
seems to be the heroine of the story.
She is the heroine of the story. I do not believe that we know her name.
So maybe that's why he disappeared, because she basically took over. He
Okay.
wasn't relevant.
Okay, interesting. But the thing is that people, I think the moral of the story is more about the fact is, don't involve yourself in a dispute. You're going to basically land up buried alive, which basically happened to the Korach people.
I thought that Aaron was the one who was always trying to create.
Aaron always did create peace. Aaron did create peace.
So
yeah.
he was putting himself in disputes between husbands and wives and trying to create shalom.
But he was, there was an existing dispute, and he was trying. What they say that Aaron. Hevei mital midov shel Aaron, ohev shalom v'rodev shalom, ohev azabrias mekarva natora. But we say that Aaron would always try, and he would go up to someone and say, "Hi, Madeline, Jost, used. You said it's like most." Yost. Okay, toast. I think I'll do toast. Okay, so let's say, God forbid, a million times they were having a disagreement. So what I would do is I'd say, Madeline, I spoke to your husband, and he told me he's really sorry, and like he really wants, and then she'd say, really? He said that? Yeah, last night didn't say that. Do you know what I'm saying? And then go around, tell people things like nice things about people to try and patch things up. So Aaron was definitely a big peacekeeper. He wasn't involved in the dispute. And in fact, when we have the end of Parshas Korach, is everyone had a stick, and the stick of Levi had blossoms and buds and flowers. So it was like his flower, almost like to prove to everybody that his tribe was the one that was supposed to have the kahuna. So we're going to leave the story of On Ben Pellis. We're going to think about that. What we're going to do now is think about stories in Tanakh and Talmud where someone either asked for advice, gave advice. Now, I'm giving a government health warning to Stuart and Joost that it's going to be a lot of women, because I've done a lot of looking in Tanakh and Talmud. By all means, I'm happy to have examples from the floor. If you can think of any stories in the Torah or in the Talmud of women who saved the day, you can find me men that saved the day or gave advice to someone else and helped the situation. Madeline, the floor's yours.
Men or women?
Anyone you like. Any stories in Tanakh?
Women, there's Yael, there's...
I'm talking about specifically telling their husband what to do, and the husband listens. Any story? Sorry?
Devorah Eshet Lapidot.
Yeah.
Devorah, yeah, excellent. She helped her husband. She got her husband to make wicks. Yeah. Sarah. Okay, let's move straight down to number. What number are we going to go up to? Now you're going to have a cheat sheet because you can all look ahead. Sarah is number 14. Number 14. Okay, here we have set the scene. Avraham and Sarah, they've got Yishmael living in the house. Not a good influence on Mr. Prince Yitzchak. And Sarah says, get rid of Hagar and get rid of Yishmael. It's not good for Yitzchak. Vayomer Elokim el Avraham. Hashem says to Avraham, don't worry about Yishmael. Don't worry about Hagar. Kol asher toma elecha Sarah shema b'kola. Anything your wife Sarah says, listen to her voice. I actually think I could make a business selling magnets, sticking it on the fridge. Anything your wife says, listen to her voice. Keep a Yitzchak yikore lecha zera. I like that one. That's one of my favourites.
The biggest problem here is it's the wife who opens the fridge more than the husband.
Oh, okay, yeah.
She will be looking at the magnet, so it's not really...
No, but she's going to have it.
The magnet has to be by the door.
The magnet has to be by the door. Okay, so we've got to start a business, yeah.
I thought that husbands are supposed to listen to their wife's advice in their relationship with mankind, but to
Yes.
other men, their relationship with Hashem.
What do you mean to other men with their relationship?
It's not the wife's advice they should be seeking when they're talking about their relationship with God.
Why?
I
Why
don't
can't
know,
women be
that's why.
amazing? What? Get me a source for that and we'll discuss it. I haven't found one. Okay? Any other stories? Now you're all looking at the sheet. I shouldn't have given out my sheet. Sorry?
No, we were looking at the source number 12.
Yeah.
Number 12.
Source says, yeah. Anyone who follows the advice of his wife descends into Gehenna.
But that's what happened with Adam and Chava.
Well, debatable. We'll have to. That's a different debate. I'm not sure if that's. It's a very, very complicated story. I'd like to think that if we want to talk about Adam and Chava, let's move to source number. It's on the back page. Sorry. Okay. Source 27. Story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Okay. Vatikach mipirio vatochal, and she took from its fruit and she ate. Vatiten gam leisha imo vayochal, and he ate it. So that's not a great story, especially that's why I said I don't really like my name. My name's Chava, because she said that. But there is this idea that perhaps when she talks to the snake, she says we're not allowed to eat the fruit, we're not allowed to touch it. And God only commanded Adam to not touch it. So we don't know whether he told her a more of a strict approach and said, you're not allowed to eat it and touch it. Maybe he gave her the wrong info. I'm going with that one. Although there are other people who said that she added the command. But I'm saying maybe he added the command. As some opinions say, he added the command to her when he repeated it. Therefore, once she said, you can't touch it, then the snake was like, oh, look, you touched it. So nothing happened to you. So that's just a side issue. Let's go down to number 28. When man is first created, Hashem says, Lo tov heyos od ha'odom levado. It's not good for a man to be on his own. E'eser lo ezer kenegdo. I will make him a helper. This is the actual translation. Help Ezer, like Ezra, kenegdo, against him. What does that mean? I will make him. So the English translation I found was, I will make her a fitting counterpart for him. But I'm saying to you, the literal translation is, I will make her a helper against him. So I'd like to say sometimes men have to have, they're like going on the wrong path, like Owen Ben Pellis' wife. And then his wife looks from the outside that she's going against him. But in fact, the very going against him is helping him. I know that's my interpretation, but
Yeah, she's helping his, almost like his Yetzirah.
keeping him in check.
Yeah, she's just keeping him on the path. Yeah.
Right? Anyone got any other stories? Okay, so I'll tell you some of the stories that I found. But we're not going to be able to do all of them, but you can have a look at the others in your free time. This is one of my favourites. Okay, source 6. Yaakov. He's married to Rachel and Leah, and he's living in the house of Lavan. And Lavan is a bit of a source 6, bottom of page 1. And Lavan is a little bit of a difficult character. And eventually, Yaakov decides he's going to leave Lavan's house. Okay, he's decided, I've got my children, I'm packing up, and I'm going. Source 6, this is Parshas Lamed Aleph, Parshas chapter 31. Vayishlach Yaakov vayikra leRachel uleLeah hasodeh. And Yaakov had called Rachel and Leah, or had them called to the field. What does the Malbim say on this? This is the Malbim, who is the Meir Levush ben Yechiel Michal Weiser, passed away 1879. He says, Lochein shalach likro es noshav. He went to go and call his wives, lehitya etz imahem. He wanted to discuss with them. He wanted to consult them. I like that. Okay? I like that he went to call them, but my best part is he went, if you look at the pasuk, it says, hasodeh. They went out in the field. How incredible is that? I found this amazing midrash that says he didn't want to speak to them in the household because he was in Lavan's house, and the nosy Parkers in Lavan's house would be eavesdropping. How amazing, like from the nuance that it says he called them to the field, that it says that he wanted to call them to the field. Last week in the Sedra, we read about the spies. It's not on your sheet. And we have the famous story that Kalev and Yehoshua were the only 2 out of the 12 spies who were saved. Now, Yehoshua was originally called Hoshea bin Nun, and Moshe changed his name. And I read this amazing Devar Torah by Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, and he asks, why is it that Kalev's name was not changed? And the answer he gives is because Kalev was married to Moshe's sister Miriam, and he thought, he's married to Miriam, she's going to keep him on the straight and narrow. Do you like that? Do you like it? I didn't make it up. If you want to look it up, I can send you the source. It's on Torah.org, and it's Rav Frand on Parshas Shlach 5783. Okay? Another one of my favourite stories comes from the Gemara. Okay? Now for this you have to think about the Pesach story, okay? Who remembers on Pesach we have the story of the rabbis, and we have the story of the rabbi who says, Hare ani kaven shivim shana. It's Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. He says, I am like 70 years old. Why is he like 70 years old? Because his hair went grey overnight. Why? His wife's hair. His wife did not make his hair grow overnight. Just to get that in there before. But there was a big dispute in the rabbinate, and then there was Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Yehoshua, and the story takes place in the Gemara Brachos 27. And basically, they chuck out Rabban Gamliel, and they say, "Out you go." And then they're trying to find a suitable replacement for who's going to be the head honcho in the Bet Midrash. Somebody suggests Elazar ben Azariah, which is very unusual because he was so young. He was probably about 18 years old. But you should know he was married already, because, I'm not going to read the Aramaic, let's look at source 9 together. They came to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and they said, would you, the master, consent to being the head of the yeshiva? He said to them, I'm going to consult with my household. And he went and he consulted with his wife. I think that's incredible. They asked him to be the Rosh Yeshiva, and he says, guys, just give me a minute. Let me just have a quick chat with my missus, and I'm going to get back to you. I think it's amazing. There are lots of discussions about why he says that. Maybe because she's personally affected. If someone takes a different job, they should always ask their wife.
It's very long hours. If suddenly you go from a job where it's 9 to 5,
Yeah, of course,
suddenly you're 24/7.
interestingly, she says, isn't it better to be, a glass from Tesco than to be 1 minute of a crystal glass and tomorrow they'll chuck you out? Which is, anyway, he takes the job. And then what happens? They reinstate Rabban Gamliel. It's a great story. They reinstate Rabban Gamliel and he's there one every 4th week because they didn't want to chuck him out. It's very interesting. And so I found this midrash that was written by the Pesach Einayim on that Gemara, and he says that he understood from, so look at source 11, when woman was created, she was taken a bone from the man, okay? Vayiven Hashem Elokim es hasela asher lakach min ha'adam isha vayiveyeha el ha'adam. He took one bone or a side of the woman, and he took it from the man, and that became, he built from that the woman, and he brought her to Adam. The first word in source 11 in Hebrew, vayiven, okay? Lahavin, yes. It comes to the same word. Bina is like understanding. Lahavin is also to build. And women have something with a higher level of understanding, according to this parshan called the Pesach Einayim, source 10 on your sheet. He is called Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai, the Chidah. And he says that God gave an extra dimension of understanding to women more than men. Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah understood that the Torah spoke in the holy language, and then he explained the word vayiven, lahavin, to understand, as bina. He gave, when he built women, he built them, and they say that women have a bina yasera. So enough feminism for today. But there are. I actually asked a lot of people. I said, "Can you find me stories?" There is one story that we thought of, is that Mordechai tells Esther. He says to her, "Im acharesh tacharish ba'es hazos." If you don't step up and be counted now, there'll be salvation through someone else. So there are stories. That's the only one I can find. If anyone can find others, please let me know where a man gives advice and saves his wife. According to the Midrash, Esther and Mordechai were
Esther was
nephew.
kind of forced into doing what she did. She didn't stand up on her own.
No, but I'm saying Mordechai advised her. So that's a story of where he advised her and she did it. Although she does then say, "Fast for me," and loads of different things. Okay, time is marching on, but you can look at the others in your own time. Let us move to... let's move to 25. Okay, this is a quickie. This is the story of King David, who's married to Michal, the daughter of Shaul. And Shaul is trying to kill King David because he thinks he's trying to usurp him, and quite right, because he was going to be the next king. Here's the story. We pick up the story in Shmuel Aleph, chapter 19. And Shmuel sent messengers to David's home to keep a watch on him, to kill him in the morning. But David's wife, Michal, told him, "Unless you run for your life tonight," and that's against her own father, think about that, "you will be killed tomorrow." Michal let David down from the window, and he escaped and fled. Michal took the household idol, it's called Trophim.
How could they have an idol?
It could be, I don't like the way it's translated, I must actually, it's called Trophim, it's, it means, it could be like, imagine pillows or mannequin. Yes, same word, but it could be idols, the household,
But would they have
mannequin, I'll call it mannequin.
Would they have had scarecrows in those days to put in fields?
Maybe, and laid it on the bed. Imagine that when someone came, she just pretended he was underneath. There's a lot to talk about that, okay? And she covered it with a cloth and at its head she put a net of goat's hair. Shaul sent messengers to seize David, but she said he's sick in bed. And then they left, and then he'd obviously long gone and long escaped. I think that's amazing. She gave her husband advice against her own father, and so this is the best story, in my opinion, is Rabbi Akiva, who acknowledges, really amazing, that Rabbi Akiva had a wife. Their story is told in a few different places. It's not written in the Torah. It's written in the Gemara. And Rabbi Akiva's wife, she says to her husband, he's been away for 12 whole years, and she says to her husband, he comes home and he overhears her saying, "If it was be up to me, I wish he would study for another 12 years. Apparently twice times 12 isn't quite the same as one long stretch uninterrupted of 24. When he finally does come home with all his students, everybody's around them, they're like bustling and hustling that he's finally coming home with all his students. And she comes up to him and she says, and the people around her, they sort of push him away and they're like, get away, this is like the great rabbi, who are you? You look like some sort of weird vagabond. And she says, and the sages tried to fend her off as they were unaware of her identity, source 26, and he said to them, leave her, both my Torah knowledge and yours are hers. That's a very famous line in the Gemara, Sheli v'shalachem shelahi. Everything comes from her. He acknowledges that all his Torah learning is in her merit, which I think is rather beautiful. I think it's very important that people have got different opinions. We can't all think the same, and I mean, there are some amazing advantages of the kibbutz style economy where everyone works together to a common cause, and it's great. But there's a fine line between a collaborative society and an enforced communist society where everyone is forced to think the same, wear the same, do the same, etc., etc. I wanted to tell you something, a very, very interesting halacha, and this is source 29 on a sheet. This is the Rambam, and he says, Sanhedrin she'paschu kulon b'dinei nefoshos techila va'omru kulon chayav harei zeh potor. If there is a group of judges who sit judging a capital case, like someone's going to be put to death on the say of the judges, if every single judge around the table says that he is liable to be put to death, that person goes free. That's like unthinkable, because you think we've got on a unanimous jury, that's fantastic. But the thought behind that process is, if every single person sitting around the table has exactly the same mindset, there's no one here who's got a divergent opinion. I always think about that film Minority Report. If anyone doesn't have a divergent opinion, then we haven't got a fair enough trial going on here. Do you understand what I just said? It's mind-blowing, because if you think we've got a unanimous jury, then you think that person should be put to death. But the rabbis are saying, no. If you've got completely unanimous, there's no one here who's standing up. No one even thinks that there's a different opinion as to what could have happened in this case. We've got a difficult situation on our hands here, and that guy goes free. I think that's mind-boggling, but for me, the reason why I brought that today is because I think it's so important to think that we're not supposed to be cut and paste, everyone's the same. We are. The whole point of the halachic system is you've got an opinion, and if you're going to say something, I have to challenge your opinion. I can't just be like, oh, she said it, okay. And when the rabbis sat around a table and the Sanhedrin had to give their opinion about something, they always started with the most junior person, because they didn't want that person's opinion to be influenced by anyone else in the room. So if the most senior judge said something, then they'd say, well, I can't contradict what he says. So they went round in order of seniority, so that way we are supposed to live in a society where people are supposed to argue. It's not supposed to be, we all think, we're not supposed to be identical, we're not supposed to be, Stepford wives. We're not supposed to be like that. We're supposed to, if we see something is wrong, we have to stand up, okay? We can't just all do the same thing, okay? Anybody want to say anything before I move on?
But you must have open and shut cases where you've got, say, 20 independent witnesses who saw the murder take place.
But when there's a jury, if every single person on the jury, if no one has even got an idea of they have a slightly different thought process, then that's what the law is, and that's the law is. I think that anything that anyone has to do, if you've got a project and you've got some people on a project, you can't just have one person. Even if, let's say, for example, you're making a brochure for a dinner, you should get another person to spell check it or proofread it. It shouldn't just all be down to one person. You should also have somebody else's ideas. If you've got an idea to do something or build something, get someone else's idea. Someone else might say to you, hold on a minute, just even think about it. Maybe it's better to put the toilet near a window. Just somebody else's opinion. Or while someone else might say, no, don't do this here. It's much better to do like just have somebody else. Don't think that it isn't. The ideal situation is have your own thoughts, but take someone else's opinion on board. You can discount what they say, that's fine. But at least have someone else's opinion. In life, there are things you can do. Don't always just be like, it's my way or the highway. Listen to somebody else. Be humble enough to think to yourself, sorry?
It's a disaster when you have people who are so powerful that no one dares contradict them.
Because that's what's happened with Trump now, isn't it? Where he appointed the judges.
Yes,
Yeah.
6 to 3. Yeah, they've all basically.
Well, that's what the Conservatives are trying to do. They're trying to say you don't want Labour to have a super majority because otherwise they'll be able to vote themselves whatever they want without having anyone. We need an opposition. We have to have that. And in fact, there's a story of Choni HaMagal has come to my mind, and he says when he slept, they say he slept for 70 years, and he woke up and he said, I don't have anyone to learn with. It's o chavrosa o misosa. Either I have someone I can learn with, or it's like I might as well die, because if someone's not going to, if I have a partner who sits with me and I say, I interpret this verse to mean this, and they're like, yeah, you're right. No, you need to have, not fighting, but you need to have someone else balancing your opinion. You need to have that Ezer Kenegdo. We have this idea that, going back to Owen Ben Pelez's wife, is he got sucked into something. He listened to his wife, and I just want to tell you something else that came to my mind. I forgot to mention is that one of my friends, and when I was preparing this, I was telling her I was preparing this. She goes, "Well, by some miracle, my husband listened to me." She went for a breast screening, and when she was there was a sign on the door, and it said there was like a poster, and it said in it, if you know any men, make sure they go for prostate cancer screening. And she said, I tell my husband, I thought he was going to ignore me. And she goes, he listened. And unfortunately, he actually had prostate cancer. And she's like, she goes, Chava, I don't know how I told him. And I don't know how he listened. And she said, when you give the class, add it in, just to raise awareness. And I was like, people, how many times, I don't want to say who, but that somehow wives nag their husbands about some things and they just don't listen. And vice versa. But I'm just saying, is in life, you're not invincible. There's nothing wrong. Even if you're the CEO, you can listen to somebody else's opinion. I like suggestion boxes if someone actually looks at the suggestions. By all means, as a person, you can look at the suggestion and discount it, but at least consider it. Because if you've got a few opinions, it's just a better way of living.
Can I ask you something? Is
Yes.
it true that if you ask a rabbi, Sheila, you have to take the answer?
Yeah, you're not allowed to go shopping around.
No,
Okay,
that's not
you,
it, no.
you should choose your rabbi very carefully. That's what they say.
So how does that work? Because that goes against what you're saying.
It doesn't take, but then you could ask friends, you could say, what do you think I should do in this situation? With halachic guidance, there is going to be a difference of opinion. There isn't necessarily, for example, I just went to a shiva. The people sitting shiva, they're going to get up on Sunday morning, and then one of the people sitting shiva, their daughter's getting married. So do the aunties come to the wedding? How does that work? Because they'll all be, the aunties and uncle, can they come to the wedding? So they've got to find someone, they've got to have halachic guidance. But you are asking advice. I'm not telling you to go shopping for halachic advice. I'm saying is, if a person, wherever you are in life, whatever stage you are, it's helpful to listen to what somebody else says. So in that case, you're going to a rabbi, but halachically, if you ask one rabbi, then you should really follow their advice. I have to tell you, sometimes I've had a question, and the rabbi said, I really don't know how to answer you. I think it's better if you ask someone else. Because if he knows that...
Because
if you...
go against him.
No, you're not supposed to go against the
rabbi.
rabbi.
I was shiva for my mother. My father asked Diane Fisher a question, and he didn't want to answer because he was worried I wouldn't follow the advice.
But maybe that's his opinion.
No,
then that's his opinion. He knew there are other opinions available, so he doesn't want to give you his opinion because he knew that would be difficult. That's okay if he said, I don't want to answer, or please go and ask someone else. That's a discussion for another time. Very off topic. Anybody else wants to say anything before I've only got a few more minutes, okay? Okay. This is like a whistle-stop tour of the whole of Tanakh. Okay. On the day that the Mishkan was dedicated, we have the story of Nadav and Avihu, who are two people who are the sons of Aaron, and they offer up a strange fire, and they die. It's in Acharei Mos. It's mentioned a few times. The story's mentioned a few times. Lots of questions why they died. And one of the opinions why they died is because they maybe went into the temple, into the Mishkan when they were drinking, because maybe a person shouldn't drink. Another opinion is because they brought a strange fire, or they did it at the wrong time. Just one second.
What is
Sorry?
a strange fire?
complicated. They shouldn't have brought in something into the... They were not commanded to bring a fire in. You're not allowed to bring fire in. It's supposed to be fire from God comes down. You're not supposed to come in with your fire, so to speak. It's a topic for another time. You can write it down and things we're interested to learn together another time. I found this incredible midrash. Okay, it says, well, now source 30, because of 4 things Aaron died. Where's my last page here? Okay, one of them is because they sacrificed a strange fire, and one of them, the last one is source 30, one minute, Va'al shelo notlu etza zu ze mizeh, because they didn't take advice from each other. Now they both together offered up a fire with a fire pan with a fire. They didn't even discuss it with each other. They both independently thought about it. The rabbis say perhaps maybe had they discussed it with each other, and even though they both had the same idea, they would have talked each other out of it and said, maybe it's not such a good idea if we do it. You know, sometimes you just go gung-ho with some idea that you've got some well, maybe not you, maybe me, harebrained scheme going full steam ahead with that. If you just discuss it with someone else, it just could be a lot better. And there's another midrash, which is source 31, which says the reason why they died is because they had no wives. There is an idea it's because they had no children. But because they had no wives, I love this story. Rabbi Levi said they had a lot of arrogance and they were saying, which woman is worthy of us? A lot of women remained unmarried, waiting for them. And they were saying, our father's brother's the king, Moshe's the king, our father's the high priest, our mother's brother Nachshon is the prince, and we're deputy priests. Which woman is worthy of us? So anyone who thinks it's a new thing, a newfangled idea, it's been in the midrash for a very long time.
Would people have chosen their own wives, or would the families have?
I don't know, but even from the time of Rivka and Yitzchak, when they asked Rivka, they said to Rivka, "Do you want to go with Yitzchak?" And she had to say, "Eilech." You couldn't force anybody to get married. So, who knows? Lots of ideas here, lots of things we've spoken about. We started off with the story of Korach, and we started off with On ben Peles, who was in the story, he was in the headline, he was involved in the dispute, but he somehow slinks into the background. Why? The Midrash tells us his wife saved him. We looked at other stories in Tanakh of people, and the Talmud, of people whose wives saved them. There's lots more to do. Adam and Chava created, woman was created, Ezer Kenegdo. You have to be a help against. And I'm just saying, I know we have 2 lovely gentlemen in the room. Men also have got lovely things to input, and they've also, it's just, I don't think anybody should be gung-ho and think to themselves, I know everything, I can do everything myself. I don't care what you think. Listen to someone's opinion and consider it. You can discount it, that's fine, but take it on. I just want to conclude with a lovely joke. Hillary Clinton was driving with her husband Bill 30 years ago, and their car broke down. The AA man comes out, whatever it's called, the 4 flags, the green flag, comes out in America to save them. And she sees this guy, and she goes, "Jack, is that you?" And so Bill's going, "Who's Jack?" He goes, "Jack was my high school's prom date." And Bill says to her, "Can you imagine if you would have been married to Bill, you'd be married to Jack, you'd be married to an AA mechanic?" And she said, "My husband, dear husband Bill, you got it wrong. Whoever I would have been married would have been the president." And with that, I hope everybody has a wonderful week. I'll stay behind if you've got any questions and comments. Take on board, it's not my advice, I don't have advice, my advice to you is take advice. If you've got an idea, a decision to make, always listen to somebody else's opinion. Discount it by all means, but there we go.
This is the principle of the Jewish patient. I want a second opinion.
Oh, I want a second opinion.
Very much. That was most enjoyable.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Liliana. Thank you very much. Everybody have a great week.